Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right now, our southern border is in a state of complete and utter disaster. Over the last several days, Customs and Border Protection has apprehended an average of 4,500 people per day. During the first 7 months of this fiscal year, the number of people apprehended has already surpassed any fiscal year total since 2009. And on one single day this month, 5,235 individuals were apprehended. In April, there were 58,474 family unit members and 8,897 unaccompanied alien minors apprehended, and those numbers will be surpassed in May. The number of single adult apprehensions has reached a 5-year high. Border Patrol has encountered more than 150 large groups, those with over 100 people so far this year. The largest group had upwards of 450 people in it. Border Patrol processing centers are far beyond capacity. ICE detention centers are full. Even the NGOs providing shelter and other aid to migrants are completely overwhelmed. Perhaps the worst part about the flood of aliens coming to the border is the toll on children brought on the journey. CBP has identified more than 3,000 potentially fraudulent family units, and the aliens are admitting that they have either borrowed, rented, or bought, yes, bought a child because they know that if they arrive at the border with a child, they're all but guaranteed to be admitted. Just last week, a 51-year-old Honduran national who had already been deported brought an unrelated 6-month-old with him to ensure that he would quickly be released by U.S. authorities. The crisis is real, and the crisis is substantial. Of course, you don't have to take my word for it. Jay Johnson, the former Obama administration DHS secretary, recently said, "We are truly in a crisis." In April, the Washington Post editorial board said the southern border has bloomed into a crisis that has overwhelmed existing infrastructure and bureaucracy. Even Speaker Pelosi has finally begun to admit there is a crisis on the border. I believe the flood of migrants can be greatly reduced and better protected by enacting legislation to fix the Flores Settlement Agreement, amending the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, and raising the credible fear standard. But I'm not the chairman, and I don't set the committee's agenda. So what have the majority done to address the situation? Absolutely nothing. My colleagues have the chance to help our overworked men and women of DHS, the overwhelmed NGOs, and the American people who believe in our country's sovereignty. Sadly, my colleagues are making us consider a bill to worsen the border crisis by incentivizing more people to cross our borders illegally in hopes of benefiting from the Democrats' mass legalization scheme. No doubt, at this very minute, the smuggling cartels are getting word out Congress is going to legalize people residing in America illegally. When this committee held a hearing on the Dreamers in March, I implored the chairman, give us a bill that legalizes some of the illegal immigrant population and that includes enforcement measures to secure our border and enforce the law inside our country. As I stated then, a bill that grants mass legalization and shuns any real enforcement measures will be opposed by Republicans for this political stunt that it is. Today, my Democratic colleagues are engaging in exactly that. They had a chance to show that they are serious about an immigration solution for DACA recipients and perhaps even the Dreamers they have talked about protecting for years. Instead, today, we are considering a piece of legislation that is simply a disingenuous political statement. H.R. 2820 provides a special path for citizenship for millions of illegal immigrants. In doing that, it places the interest of those who have violated our laws above the interest of the men and women who have waited patiently for their green cards to become available. Of course, the bill provides the same path to legal non-immigrants, so the number of potential beneficiaries is completely unknown. The bill also allows criminal aliens and those who have committed immigration fraud to receive green cards. It ultimately rewards parents who brought many of these individuals to the U.S. illegally with green cards and eventual citizenship of their own. It incentivizes fraud through lax documentation requirements and allows people to skirt the requirements. It even allows aliens no longer in the U.S. to apply for green cards. H.R. 2820 purports to prevent alien gang members from eligibility, but the prohibitions are so narrow it is virtually unworkable. But before anyone talks about us not wanting to solve a problem, that is simply not true. As evidenced by 2 floor votes last year, the vast majority of Republicans want to provide legal status for DACA recipients, but we want to do it the right way, to minimize fraud and to assure criminals cannot get the status so we don't find ourselves repeating this conversation in 5 or 10 or 15 years as we have been doing. H.R. 2820 accomplishes none of these goals, and I would therefore urge my colleagues to oppose this legislation. With that, I yield back.